was the monocrop. It was the dominant crop.
When decline hit, it was devastating to the county.
We were trying anything.
They had the first smorgy.
That's how we started Apple Hill.
All the apples, caramel apples. We just eat all day, I think.
Most everybody's in a good mood.
We make a whole day of it. Start early in the morning, you go from farm to farm.
It's just a fun place to come up.
You know, Apple Hill's going to celebrate its 50-year anniversary.
The Apple Hill region has become a multi-crop, year-round attraction.
Wow, if we could go another 50 years, what a good testimony that would be for us.
This area was a large pear growing area, and in 1959, an insect carried a disease called pear decline. It was a horrible blow to the county because the farmers were losing their cash flow. Our production in the county in 1969 was 62,000 tons. In 4 years, that production dropped to 10,000. We were trying anything to save the industry because they had no fallback. We brainstormed all kinds of crazy ideas. It was Gene Bolster, Dick Bethel, the county farm advisor, Bob Tuck, who was a large farmer in the area, and myself. But during that conversation, there was an old timer that said, I live in an area called Oak Glen out of Yucaipa, Southern California, where they have branch marketing of apples. And so we drove down there and we brought it back up here, and that's how we started Apple Hill. We didn't have bake shops up here, and we had a one-day event, Apple Hill Smorgasbord, which was a smorgasbord of apple desserts.
They had the first smorgy. All the growers doing their best apple desserts and putting them together. And we had a weekend, and people came up and bought desserts by the slice.
For about 10 cents a piece. But the 4-H'ers and the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts
and the PTA.
And the PTA, the whole community started making the desserts in their homes and bringing them to the smorgy.
We fell by our own weight that we had so much traffic up here. We went from one day to a weekend to 2 weekends to 2 weekends and a week in between, and we just couldn't handle it.
It got out of hand to where it went to the individual. Then they started having individual bake shops at the ranches, and people went to those ranches.
And that first year at Halloween, I made candy apples. Thought I'd have trick-or-treaters. I didn't get a one because we're off the beaten track. We took them up to our little apple stand and sold those 20 or 30 candy apples for 15 cents a piece. People were so glad to get them. And then my husband said, you know what we need to do? You need to start making pies. So in 1966, I started making pies at our little house, at a little cabin, and bringing them up to our little stand. And then when we built the big barn, Wally made me a little pie shop. Pretty soon now, I wasn't the only bake shop. There must have been about 30 bake shops on the hill, and we needed them. And that was probably 1967. But I started making the pies in the cabin in 1966. And that was the first commercial apple pies on the hill. But we have been here since then, and we would never want to leave. We love our area and love all the people. It's been great.
After the smorgy got out of hand, we got the idea, and this also came from Oak Glen, is having a press picnic once a year and inviting the people from the newspaper and television and radio to come and giving them a barbecue dinner and telling them to go home and let everybody know that we were well and healthy and ready for business.
Is everybody having a great time today? Is this beautiful or what? The food was terrific, the desserts magnificent, the wines weren't bad either, huh? So anyway, thanks for having us up here, Evelyn and everyone else at Apple Acres. Thank you.
Generational farming in our family started in 1854. My husband's great-great-grandfather came. They started out with a farming enterprise that was really centered around cows, the farming of field crops. They did some potatoes those first years back in the late 1800s. Then it motivated them to go into the apple trees, the pear trees. They had some peaches. Right now, our ranch has 4 different generations on it, which means that you take out the kids and teach them from a very early age to learn to love the land, the trees, watch the product as it grows and matures.
The Harris farm had a lumber mill, and in the 1950s decided we needed to do something to make a profit and get people up to our farm, and we planted Christmas trees. And our first customer came in 1961 to choose and cut their own Christmas tree. And then when Apple Hill started, we decided to be one of the first Christmas tree farms to join Apple Hill.
The first year of Apple Hill, 1964, coincided with the start of the narrow gauge railroad, the Camino Cable and Northern Railroad, which was a narrow gauge railroad that started right up here at the Camino Coffee House, what is Coffee House today, and went 1.1 miles to the intersection of Cable and Larson. And fortunately, the startup of that, obviously it was very popular with the tourists. The railroad tracks went right along the edge of our picnic area, and the train would stop at our picnic area. They'd get off, go to the picnic area. My brother and sisters, we were assigned the task of selling apples and juice to the customers that would get off the train, and a couple hours into that, my brother and I would be bored, and we'd get on the train and ride the train all day and get up in the caboose and ride all day in the caboose. My dad wondered why we didn't sell that many apples.
I was a student at Davis and was studying viticulture, and I had remembered reading an article back in the late 60s about the potential of growing grapes up here in El Dorado County. Got introduced to Ed Delfino and Dick Bethel, who were the progenitors of Apple Hill, and they were promoting this region, so they kind of took me under their wing. This was 1972. Apple Hill was already well established with around 400,000 customers coming up, and I was looking at this ranch down on the lower end closer to Placerville. They said, buy this ranch. It was a whole old historic ranch, formerly the site of a vineyard and winery. So on their recommendation, I bought the ranch and started planting grapes, and then to help me out, they brought me to the Apple Hill Growers Association, and wanted to see if perhaps they could expand their Apple Hill region a little further to the west toward Placerville to include my ranch. And they all got together and thought, well, it'd be a great idea to not only have apples and Christmas trees, but maybe grapes and wine and other crops subsequently were invited in to broaden the season for Apple Hill. So they generously adopted me, and I became the lower entrance to Apple Hill, and I think it's been a very long-term benefit for everyone.
We started out originally as a packing farm, and they grow a really good apple up here, a Golden Delicious with a cinnamon flavor to it that's very unique. Our father was asked to make apple juice for Rayleigh's. He figured it was pretty easy. You just get a bunch of apples together and squeeze them and put them in a bottle. That first venture went horribly wrong. He used the wrong apple, and it didn't taste good at all. They let us know. So we did a little more research and we started to blend certain apples, tart, sweet, and came up with what's our proprietary blend now. Well, I think because of the Apple Hill Growers Association and the name and the public awareness, it allowed people to be more acceptable to a product. If it wasn't for the Apple Hill name and the Apple Hill area, it would have been a lot more difficult to get going in the business for sure.
Oh, we're just up here as a family. We're getting together. We come up here. We've been coming up here for 30 years.
When you drive through Apple Hill and stop at these ranches, each one is different. Because each grower's got his own idea, or his or her own idea on what to do. And that's been a real, one of the real secrets of success is people are able to drive through here and find a ranch they really like and come back to it all the time or keep looking.
We come every year for the girls to pick their apples, pumpkins, pony rides, and then we go home and get the pies ready for the holidays.
I like to eat and pick the apple.
We make a whole day of it. Start early in the morning and go from farm to farm.
All these visitors, they just don't come here. They go to town, they eat other places. It really helps the whole county.
We have Jean Reinders from the Fudge Factory Farm up in Apple Hill joining us today. It's so good to have you here, Jean. So how do we begin making this?
Well, first of all, you have to come up to Apple Hill. You can see actual farm in progress. You can see what happens, how the product comes in. No matter when you come here, there's always someone making candy, making jams.
You know, there's jams and pies and things to get, and of course the pumpkins.
I think ranch marketing has been the savior. If Apple Hill wasn't developed, it would be subdivisions.
We've had really wise agriculture people like Ed and Dick that helped us to grow these products and keep the land for farming and not turn it over to the developers.
I think there's always going to be a need for an agricultural community that the urban dwellers can come and bring their kids to.
People come up here for scenery. They come up here to see the beauty, to breathe the fresh air.
Well, I think it's good, especially kids that are from the city. They get to explore and see sort of a bit more of the countryside.
There's a desire in people to give back to the earth. You know, there's a strong desire. And when they come across something that's real, it's not fake. You know, what you see is what you get. People can get out of the cities, bring their kids, and meet the local farmer and his wife who grows and produces all the products that we produce. It's an opportunity for them to be able to come up here, see the crop actually grown, see it processed. They have very few opportunities to really get to visit with a farmer in California. I mean, you think of commercial agriculture in California, they sure in hell don't want 40 high school or grammar school kids running through their lettuce fields. I think we have such a good established base, support of the county, support of the community, that I think Apple Hill will continue to prosper. The Apple Hill region has become a multi-crop region. Not only is there peaches, plums, grapes, apples, Christmas trees, blueberries.
But we're also in the sweet spot of the farm to fork movement, where people want to know where their food's grown. They want to be more connected with their food. The locavore movement, people want to come out and harvest their own fruit from the grower.
People now go to grocery stores and they don't know where their fruit came from. It could have come anywhere over the world. So when they come up and they ask, where did this apple come from? I point to those trees, they say they came right from there. That's where that fruit came from.
This is an amazing place to come and visit.
We're in a good, beautiful area. We're 40 miles from a metropolitan area. So we had a lot of things going for us.
We've watched, you know, kids and grandkids and on come to get their Christmas tree, come to get their apples year after year.
It's a family tradition. A lot of them come every year, sometimes 2, 3 times.
We greet a lot of our customers as friends.
My father-in-law's 82. He did a great job to get us where we are right now. Let's see what we can do to go the next 50 years.
Because we have wonderful families up here that reach out to the public and welcome the families to come up here, and we grow a nutritious, healthy product. When you come to Apple Hill, there is something here for everyone.